and we'll let Jessica start us off.
Can't hear you, Jessica.
Oh, my name is Jessica Rorson, and I'm working with the IBDS program that is in partnership with Sage Hill. And so my role has been up to this point is organizing these BizMaker series, this webinar series that is geared towards entrepreneurs and small business in Saskatchewan. And so today we have Cate Morris with us, the owner of Scout Financial Solutions. And she recently, a few weeks ago, walked us through money management, but for your personal business, for your personal finances. And this week she's going to be talking more about money management for your business. So we're really happy to have Cate with us today, and I will pass it on. Maybe Sherilyn, you want to do an intro?
Sure. I'm Sherilyn Walters. I'm also part of IBDS, which stands for Indigenous Business Development Services, and I'm in partnership with Sage Hill. So I'm your coach, your consultant, the person that you can call if you have any questions, or text, or phone.
Whatever works.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if you email me, it's going to take me longer because I never go in there. There's too many emails coming in every day.
That is so true right now.
Yeah. Okay, Jenny, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Jenny Glessman, and I work with the Sage Hill Community Futures Office in partnership with the IBDS. We've been bringing this Biz series of webinars to entrepreneurs, and we're excited to get Cate talking today. With that, I think we'll do a little bit around the room. So we'll start and just, tell us if you've got a business or if you're thinking of a business and your name, and then we'll get started. So
and where you're from.
And where you're from. I always forget that one. So we'll start with Shane, because you were our first one to come on. If you can tell us about yourself.
Shane McKechnie. I'm looking at starting a new business. I have recently was with Federated Co-op, and COVID caught up to the co-op, and I was one of the unlucky ones to be laid off. But lots of experience and just trying to understand how to start a business and trying to figure out what that is, and finances is part of that. So I'm in Saskatoon.
Saskatoon.
Thanks.
So Shane, after this is all over, Jessica will send you, please, a link. So we've been recording all of our sessions, and so they're all on YouTube, and so she'll send you the link to there, and you can go back and take a look at any topics that you've missed.
Great, thanks.
Okay.
And so then our next one, is it Kyla?
So my name's Kyla Duke, and I'm looking at also starting my own business. And I met with Sherilyn a few weeks ago, and she gave me the information for these Biz Money talks. So I'm here just learning more about how to start up my business. And I'm from Regina.
You should turn your video on and show them what you do.
Started making personalized tumbler cups.
Oh, okay.
So there's one of them. This is mine. This is my personal one.
Are you guys seeing them? Because I'm not.
I am. Yep.
I'm not seeing. No, sorry.
That's okay.
That's okay.
If they can see him, I've already seen him. So if they can see him, that's all that matters.
Yeah. So like I said, there's this one, and then I have some more, but they're on my.
Yep.
They're drying over there, but yeah. So that's what I've been working on.
That's awesome.
Oh, Kyla and Shane, I see you now. I just have to scroll down, but then I lose a couple people.
Okay. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Cate, and she's going to introduce herself a little bit and lead us through the presentation.
Thank you so much for that. I use petroglyphs a little bit. I use a lot of visuals, and normally in-person workshops, we do some hands-on stuff. This is more of an informational workshop or session to have entrepreneurs thinking of things that they need to consider and cover while they're developing their business or while they're starting their things. So as I said, my name is Cate Morris, and once upon a time I was living my happily ever after. I was married, we had 2 beautiful daughters, and I thought life couldn't get any better than that. So that was my plan A. And then tragedy struck. My husband was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and it took everything in my body, in my mind, in my spirit to be able to start again with my 2 little girls, 1 on each hip. So I did manage to return to the workplace. He was the breadwinner, right? He knew all the personal finances. He had the comprehension that I didn't have. He had a degree already and was working well in corporate Canada. So I finished a degree and I landed a job, a nice, rewarding career, and I was doing reasonably well. So plan A was gone. I'm working hard on plan B. Plan B involved the birth of a 3rd child. So I have a wonderful son and I'm feeling very happy and content at this point. I'm surviving, right? I'm learning about personal finances. This was 25 years ago. So I've been studying personal finances since. That's plan B. There's my 3 lovely little babies, my 2 girls and my son. And then boom, life happened again. I was standing in a store paying for a glass repair when a vehicle smashed through, picked me up, and carried me and pinned me against a concrete wall. It was by far the most frightening experience I ever had in my life. And I recall very clearly giving my last will and testament to a hysterical store clerk who probably had no comprehension of what I was saying and what I was doing. She ended up calling me weeks and weeks later because she was traumatized by witnessing the experience. So I ended up mentoring and supporting her while I was laying flat, trying to recover. So I spent years in recovery at Wascana Rehabilitation Center, learning to use my right limb again, learning to walk, learning to basically function with limited disabilities. It was very painful. It was very devastating. It was financially difficult because I went from making 100% of my obligations with 100% of my salary to only having 65% of my income. So I had to really work hard and adjust and slash and save and be extra cautious with my money so that I'm able, as the solo parent of 3 children, solo parent meaning no other parent's engagement or involvement, to take care of our household. So, and on top of all that, I was diagnosed with a permanent disability that is extremely painful. So as I sit here with you with a smile on my face, I am in pain. That's just the nature of my life. That's how I proceed. But know that there's a reason for everything. So plan A is gone, plan B is gone, plan C is gone. My 3 young loves are doing great. And I have this perspective that that was then and this is now. So I'm going to do the best I can with what I have in the limited time I have available. So I have another wonderful family member. My daughter has a fantastic partner, and I have 2 perfect, wonderful, blessed little grandchildren. So this is us fighting through life and carrying on and still saying we're forward facing and our feet are on the ground with our goals in mind. This was taken in January of 2020, and those are my 3 children, my 2 grandchildren, my smiling, bright son-in-law, and that's me in the back being shy. But this was the Airbnb that we decided to spend time in Edmonton with. So I just wanted to share these types of things because a lot of times people just want to talk numbers, and that's not really significant if it has no meaning to you. I do know that a lot of people struggle with trauma and life crises and hardships, but what mine taught me was that there's a huge difference between what we know about money, right about here, and what we need to know. So I started studying personal finances exclusively. I do have a business admin degree. I feel like this is the first time that I ever started using my degree, even though I spent 17 years in the federal government in procurement and finance and human resources. I wanted to go around and share knowledge with people because there's a lot of things I've discovered in my personal struggles that people don't know about money. So I go out. Do you find that, well, I haven't been traveling since COVID, forgive me, but I like to share good news about money. I like to share insight. I like to share perspective that people might not consider when they're working so that we can get you your hard-earned dollars. So that's my biz story. That's me there. Just as a tip, if you want a nice professional photo, I just had somebody attend with me. We were at a webinar, or sorry, a workshop. And I just asked her on coffee break, do you mind taking a couple photos for me? And it was free to use my cell phone. I took some pictures, and then at least I have a professional profile, which is important for yourself to have. So just find a nice place, make sure there's a nice plant in the background or in the foreground, and ask somebody to take several pictures of you, and you could look through it, and then you have a professional business photo that costs you nothing. So, like this saying, because it says life is a balance of holding on and letting go. And for me, I fought very hard to resume my position with my federal government. I fought for years, and I spent a lot of energy and a lot of time instead of just learning that maybe this is a pivot point for me. And I know with a lot of people with COVID, this is a change in career time for yourself as well. So it's important to consider some things when you're going through that process. So we've already done this. I incorporated this. But I wanted to know what your story is and where you're from, type of business stage. That's already been covered. I believe Jenny asked the question, and thank you both for sharing. I love hearing what other people are up to, what they're doing. And if we had a lot of time, I'd love to hear some of the specific challenges that you're going through, and I'd be able to suggest, share, even just hear you out. So I always talk about financial literacy because it's important, and it's especially important when you are becoming an entrepreneur, because you need to know what you need to know about money. So financial literacy is basically possessing the skills and knowledge on financial matters to confidently take effective action that best fulfills an individual's personal, family, and global community goals. Now, this is the National Financial Educators definition, and I think it's a fantastic example for people who are really working to make sure that they're safe and that their family's safe and that they're able to contribute healthily to their community. So going forward, I just want you to know that money management and money skills have very little to do with our capabilities or our worthiness. A lot of times we've heard that we just don't get it, or that it's something that's been excluded from us. We haven't sat at that table. We just need to know what we need to know about money. So this saying actually hangs in my son's bedroom because it's important for him to understand and comprehend that we came from a long line, all of us, of survivors and resilient people, because if they weren't resilient or survivors, none of us would be here having our nice conversation today. So it's important to remind yourself of good things, positive things. So it's just a matter of knowledge sharing. So if you're ready to get in the know about your dough, let's get started. So you're thinking about entrepreneurship. Here's a definition that I found very useful. It's the activity of setting up a business or businesses, and it's taking on financial risks in the hope of profit. Now, as myself, as an entrepreneur, I struggled with the idea of transitioning and pivoting for a long period of time because I felt I was only viable in one element. And then the more I started studying about entrepreneurship and reading it and watching the right type of movies and reading the right type of material, I realized that I was always an entrepreneur because we're creative, we're resourceful, and we have a don't quit type of attitude. So I know I talk about this from an Indigenous perspective because right now there's a lot of people who are living in rural areas and remote areas. They don't have access to internet the way other people do sometimes. They don't have access to resources. A lot of people don't realize this, but as an Indigenous person under the Indian Act, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to obtain or secure a loan for business purposes. I live in the city, so that's not a huge issue for me, but for a lot of rural people, there's a challenge there. So I really love, this is like the concept of what entrepreneurship is. And what it is allowing people to go in and tap into something that you're really good at. So it's, as you go through this, think about the things that you're really skilled at. Your caps are a fantastic example of that. You never know what is going to solve a solution for somebody else. So that's how I went in with financial literacy as my concept. We're always trying to find a solution. So here you are thinking about starting your own business and becoming an entrepreneur. So let's talk about Incorporation You. And what I mean by that is there are many important things to consider as an entrepreneur. You want to make sure that you have an income-based budget. And by income-based budget, I mean you're not borrowing to pay the rent or your basic needs. You want to consider some of your healthcare needs. Those are significant things that you need to have in place for yourself as you venture from employment as an employee to entrepreneurship. Another thing is to consider retirement. It's important for you to consider that as soon as you can. Even though you may be going hand to mouth right now, there's going to be a chance for you to start saying, time right now is on my side. You want to talk about some of the insurance needs that you may need to address. And another thing that we need to talk about, it's really important, and I'm not somber in this at all, is a will. As you become an entrepreneur, your assets have changed, your obligations have changed, and it's important that you have a will in place. So we'll talk about these in detail in the next slides to come, but these are things to consider as an entrepreneur. So income-based budget. Now, if people sat in on my last webinar, I talk about creating a personal budget, and I always talk about keeping it 100. There's really only 4 areas that you need to consider: your bills, your debts, your obligations, some type of short or midterm savings. Usually that is something that is based on creating an emergency fund or something less than 2 years, like if you plan on purchasing a vehicle for cash. If you plan on starting a business in the next 2 years, it's important to start saving up a little bit of startup dollars just to help you get over some of the things that may come across. Meaningful savings are the longer term savings. That's your retirement plan. That's something maybe buying a house in 5 to 10 years. And your life expenses. Life is pretty much everything else, right? And I always talk about traditional teachings from my perspective, from my experiences and my background. And in a full workshop, we talk about the teachings of the buffalo, and you can utilize any animal or anything for that course, but it's that you're utilizing 100% of it. You're not wasting any of it. Nothing's being left. You're repurposing it. You're saving it. You're processing it for future use, which is in terms of savings. So we talked about in the other workshop, creating a budget or a spending plan, and your budget is simply where your income is equal or greater than your expenses. And there's an element of cash flow to it, meaning you need to track how your money moves in and out of your household so that you're not getting NSF charges, so that you haven't overcommitted yourself. And this is really important as an entrepreneur because your personal affairs need to be managed well in case there's any crises or emergency or things that happen when you're operating your business, such as bringing 2 puppies in 2 days before you have to do a live webinar. So it's important to have those dates. So this was one of the handouts I gave out for the first workshop. If you would like that, Shane, if you didn't attend, by all means contact somebody at IDBS or something, and they can send some of the links in the handouts that I gave to create a personal budget, because that's a huge step for anyone to manage. So I always say it's so fantastic. I don't mind paying my bills. I don't mind managing those things because it helps me have a clear conscience. I don't stay up at late. It's a de-stressor. It's all of those things that are taken care of. So as an entrepreneur, this is something that I found really relevant, is sometimes your income will fluctuate. For yourself, Kayla, that you're selling a product, Christmas, certain dates, maybe Valentine's Day, you're going to be able to market your product based on the season or the holiday, right? So December might be a fantastic month. January might be a little slower as people start looking at their credit cards and their bank account statements. I know for myself, I have very little business in December because everybody's spending money and nobody wants to be reminded that you need to spend it consciously and intentionally. So I wrote up some of the challenges with some of the things that we're dealing with. So the challenge is, how do you budget when some months you're earning less or more revenue than other months? And these are all just considerations and recommendations for yourself. So number 1, consider creating budgets based on the average of several months of revenue. For example, anywhere from 3 to 4 months. So if you're starting your business in January, consider January, February, March. Average that out and then make your April budget on that, or your previous 3 months. So that's important to have. Another alternative is create your budgets using the worst case scenario. For example, what is your lowest revenue month? And that's something I do. I'm always about risk assessment and managing risk. So I always use my worst case scenario income for the month. And then I create my budget on that. So at least I know I'm meeting these obligations. And if there's a challenge, then I say, okay, there's a challenge there, let's address it. So for me, the worst case scenario, i.e. your lowest income or revenue month, is how I manage mine. Now, number 3, if you have a surplus month and your revenue is higher in a certain month versus the other months, it's really important that you maybe consider saving some of that surplus for the lower case or for the lower revenue months. So those are just 3 alternatives that you can consider. And it's really important to consider how you're going to manage your money, how you're going to estimate it coming in, and how you're going to estimate when it's not going to be as high as you would like it to be. Now, I do want you to thrive in your business by all means, but just in case, it's so important to have a solid base. So once again, there's that happy guy saying, if we do this, we're able to better manage our resources. Number 2 on the list was the healthcare needs. The challenge is, how are you going to be able to cover your personal or family-related health needs? And these are, again, considerations for you to think about. If you're currently employed, ask about the portability of your current employment plan. Touch bases with human resources and say, if I continue to pay into my healthcare plan as I transition from employee to a business owner, is that something that's portable for you? I know when I was forcibly retired from the federal government due to the condition of my health and my disabilities. And that was one of the questions I had and discussions I had with our human resources, that I still can continue as a medically retired employee to pay into my healthcare plan so that I have some coverage there. It's minimum, but at least it's a little bit more than nothing. Check in to see if there's any group plans available for entrepreneurs. I know that those things are on the rise. I'm not exactly familiar with specific names, and I try not to promote specific product as it is, but look into some of the websites and see if there's a group plan available for entrepreneurs for a lower cost. Consider some private healthcare plans. We've seen commercials for some of them. For a few dollars a month, not very much, you might be able to consider saving something towards your healthcare plan or be a part of a plan. And the 4th one, and this is what I do as well, is I do self-funded savings. So that's all about being able to create your healthy balance. So what exactly I mean by self-funded savings? Well, I have e-savings accounts, and they're automatically deposited to. On the 1st of every month, I get most of my income created for the 1st of the month, and then everything's automatically transferred. One of them is actually a health and wellness fund. So I have X amount of dollars transferred from my revenue, my income source, to an e-savings fund. And I do that because my glasses are extremely expensive, because I do sometimes will have to have medical tune-ups because of my conditions, and because I want to make sure that I have some level of security, being the solo parent and being the head of my household. Even though I still just have 3 young adults, it's important for me to set a good example for that. So an e-savings account basically is a free account. Usually there's no service fee associated whatsoever. It is tied to your regular bank account. So if you want to open it, contact your banking representative there. And as a side tip, I always encourage people to meet with their financial representatives at least 3 to 4 times a year. Develop a good relationship. A lot of positive business experiences are based on healthy relationships. So it's good to check in with them and say hello and see how you're doing, and tell them your goals. Tell them you're interested in pursuing a business, and they'll be able to give you additional advice or support that way. Back to the e-savings accounts, it pays a minimal amount of interest, which is still better than having to pay bank fees for an account. There's few or no limits to your account activity. One of the exceptions is that if you withdraw directly from your account, there will be a service fee. So normally what you want to do is you want to go from your e-savings account to your regular account, and then you could do the transaction from your regular account based on your limitations. So that's really important, because I know a lot of people get upset and say, my e-savings account is X amount of dollars, and it's like, because you're using it as a direct account, and it's really not. It's a savings, e-savings, electronic savings account. So they try to deter you from accessing it like a cash fund by putting a little bit of a service fee associated to it. So that's what we talk about when we're talking about our health. And the whole goal of the e-savings account is to grow your savings for your mental, emotional, spiritual health. Retirement planning. So the challenge, you've launched your business, and your business is thriving. Congratulations. It may seem out of place now, but what are you doing for your retirement goals? And as you can see there, I have a clock and a little note on compound interest. You know, they always say that now is the best time to start working towards something. And it really is important. Even if it's $25 a month, it's important now that time is on your side to try to put something towards your retirement. So here's a couple of considerations for you. So once again, if you are currently an employee, check with your human resources or your employer about the portability of your current employment plan. Group plans, there are some of it out there available for entrepreneurs. Contact the Canada Pension Plan, Service Canada, and ask what your contributions to date are. A lot of times they can issue a statement and say, well, these are what we estimate your pension retirement funds will be when you retire, either at 60, 65 or not, or whatnot. And it's free to access. Give them a call, send them an email, contact them and say, I really would like to know. So it gives you an idea of what you're working towards and where the gap needs to be filled. Also, consider what your RRSP contribution room is. Now, an RRSP is based on what your previous tax year's filings are. I know for myself, when I was forced out of employment, I have no other words to say it, but and I think a lot of people during COVID can relate. You don't want to leave your employer and your secured salary, but sometimes life happens and there's circumstances that change it. So I did have some RRSP contribution rooms, so I do now that I'm feeling more financially secure and stable, that I'm contributing to my RSP again for my retirement at 65. And again, self-funded savings. So when we talk about self-funded savings, on top of the RSP contribution room, is retirement for all of us is just ahead. So self-funded savings. As an example, I'll use myself. I currently contribute to a registered retirement savings plan. It simply is a tax deferment. It's not tax exempt, unfortunately. So at some point when I actually retire and access those funds, I will be taxed based on those contributions and my income at that period. It does provide an income tax incentive. So it actually reduces or deducts your taxable income amount. So they have a calculation to help with that. So it actually reduces how much of my income is taxable. I'll word it that way. That was a little bit funny. Contribution room limits. Again, this is based on previous tax returns. Every year, Revenue Canada, when they complete, or Canada Revenue Agency, when they complete your tax return, they have that little statement at the bottom of your assessment, and it tells you your tax contribution room, or your RSP contribution room. So you still have an option to continue saving that as an entrepreneur because it's based on previous years. Okay. And RRSPs are basically just a basket of investments. For example, there could be cash in there. I've even seen and heard of people having gold in their RSP. I don't mean physically, but I mean obviously they're investing in gold, which is way up there. Good for them. That's fantastic. GICs, savings bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, those types of things are all in a basket. And you can decide with your financial representative what parts you would like placed in your basket, or what portions. Now, the second thing is fantastic. It's called a tax-free savings account. Are you guys familiar with tax-free savings account? You've got a couple of head nods, great, a couple that aren't. Okay, so that's all right. So the tax-free savings account is non-taxable, and it is completely 100% tax exempt when you deposit it, when you withdraw it, when you move it around to different types of investments. It's 100% tax exempt. It does not provide an income tax incentive per se because there's no taxes related to a tax-free savings account. And they do have limitations to your contribution room. So the limitations, if you had never opened a tax-free savings account, they started in 2009, and then 2020 is the latest contribution room, you would have access to saving $69,500 in the tax-free savings account. If you go over certain limits, there are annual limits, and you'd have to follow up with your financial advisor or your bank representative on that, because each year the values tend to shift. At one point it was 10,000, and then at other points there were 5,000. But accumulatively, you have $69,500 of contribution room. So again, it's very similar to the retirement savings plan in that it's a basket of investments, very similar to the RSP. You can decide how you want to invest your money. The interest is not taxable. There is some limits to, if I deposited $5,000 in 1 year and I decided to take out $3,000 later in that year, you cannot go back to contributing the $5,000. So there's limits there. It's important to track it for yourself. Your financial representative can help you with that, but Canada Revenue Agency does have a penalty if you go over any of those limits. And again, the one difference between the tax-free savings account and the RSP is you can save it for, you can use it for any savings goal. I like to buy my vehicles in cash, so this is just a side tip. What I do is that the month that I buy my vehicle, the very next month I start saving in a tax-free savings account, so that when I'm ready to buy my vehicle, whether it's 4 years, 5 years, or 6 years, depending on the wear and tear, then I have that lump sum of cash saved already. So I don't finance my vehicles anymore, and it took me several vehicles to get to that point, but with commitment and dedication and just really saying these are the goals that I want to attain, it's possible. I mean, I'm a solo parent, 3 kids, right? I have a disability. I'm a widow. There's a lot of things that are supposedly against me, but here I am thriving financially because I'm following the rules. I'm learning about the rules. So just a side note, there will be investment advisor fees involved. Sometimes they're just salaried employees. Sometimes there's a flat rate, like per transaction. Sometimes it's an hourly rate. Sometimes it's commission-based or percentage-based, or even a mixture of various types. Again, the ultimate goal is to grow your money. So be very wary of that. Ask them what their fees are, and you'll have to consider that, make that calculation. If they're earning me X amount of dollars, but it's costing me X amount more, then that's not a good investment. If it's earning me X amount of dollars, but it's not costing me nearly that much to earn that amount, then it pays off for yourself. So number 4, the 4th thing you should consider is insurance. For the challenge as an entrepreneur. Sorry?
Can I just ask you a question just in terms of tax-free savings for 1 second?
Sure.
Can you have more than one?
Yes, you can. I actually have 2, and I have one that I invest in regularly every month that isn't a very high value, and I have one that I invest in at a higher value. I'm just very aware that I have not reached the maximum contribution room per year.
Right.
But yes, you can have more than one tax-free savings account.
And that's how you kind of get away with that cap, right?
Well, you actually still have to abide by the cap. It's not per tax-free savings account, it's per person.
Okay.
Yeah, the cap is based on per person, and you have to be over the age of 18. So you can't open one, and trust me, I've checked, and have your minor open one and have those tax-free savings accounts. Again, I love that it's 100% tax exempt. But no, you can have more than one tax-free, but the limitations are tied to you as an individual. And because Canada Revenue Agency, they don't issue you reports saying, oh, you're near your limits. You have to manage it yourself fairly well. But that's easy enough to know. How much are you putting in a tax-free savings account per month times 12? Right. And you'll know if you're near your limit or not. The challenge I always find is that they have annual limits, but then they have all this room. So you'd have to talk with your financial representative, because I'm sure they know the rule as to why you're allowed. If you want $60,000 and you want to put $60,000 in a tax-free savings account, you have contribution room, and I think that's allowable, but I think it's going forward. So once you hit your contribution room limit, I think going forward is what I would think.
And then
good question.
And then they would just maybe, and I know you're not a broker, but I'm just curious, and then they would maybe advise you to move that money somewhere else once you got to that max, and then start again.
Well, I think you would probably, and again, this is just talk, because I personally, I'm not comfortable providing people with financial advice. I like to sleep safely at night. Yeah. I know that it's just a crystal ball, right? If they were fantastic at what they were doing, they'd all be multimillionaires by now. If people knew how to play the market. So for myself, ethically, I don't like to tell people where to put their money. Yes. I know, like, I do own stock. I do a bit of gambling with my stock. I do invest in the multiple vehicles, savings and investment vehicles. But that's because I have everything else secure first. So it's almost a risk or a gamble. In terms of the tax-free savings account, I think it might be beneficial to you to actually just look at the interest rates first. Because by the time you buy into something and by the time you take it out, the values could change significantly. If we look at what happened as soon as COVID hit, right, in March, everybody's investments just crashed. Now they rebounded and they're improving, which is really important and great, especially for people with pension plans. A lot of people thought they were losing their pensions. right? Just like 2008, when the bottom hit in the United States,
Yeah.
housing market bubble crashed. Everybody was losing their jobs and their homes and all of those things.
Yes.
So we have to be careful when we talk about investments. It's important not to have a knee-jerk reaction to things and just try to ride it out. So at that point, if you've maxed your capacity and you've put 69,500 away, there's other savings vehicles that you can do. Like for myself, I go into stock.
Right.
Right. So for everyone else, you're going to try to see what your risk, how comfortable you are with risk, how comfortable you are with maybe potentially losing some money, but also what your goals are. So
Right.
for entrepreneurs, it's really important that they're stable as they develop and grow their business. And when they hit that certain point where they're actually generating a better revenue and everything else is stable, then, you know, you
Yes.
never know what they want to do, pursue.
Thank you.
Okay. So number 4 is insurance. So the challenge is I've never considered insurance before. What kind of insurance should I consider? I have this wonderful big thought bubble and do I need life, disability, and illness, business insurance? What's that, right? That was something I was curious about. Like when I started my entrepreneurship journey, I didn't even know I needed additional insurance. So very quickly, I'm just going to go over the types. I'm just going to list the types of insurance for you to consider because these are all things that you need to consider, right? So automobile insurance. Now that you're going to be using your vehicle for business as well as leisure, do you need to have an additional package policy? Your home insurance in terms of owners or renters insurance. For myself, I actually spoke with my insurer and I said, well, I'm considering launching a business. I don't know if I need to up my home insurance. And he had asked me a number of questions. It was a fantastic free call. I love those free advice sessions, right? Because we're all trying to make sure we manage our bottom dollar as entrepreneurs. And he recommended I increase my home insurance if I'm going to be engaging or having clients visit on premise. Now, that's not what I'm doing at all. That wasn't ever what I intended to do. So I didn't have to actually increase my home insurance. Professional liability insurance. I also researched this because I'm talking about personal finances. And I explained what I was doing in detail. And I explained very clearly that I had no intention of being an investment advisor or a certified financial planner, which just as a side note is actually not a regulated industry in Canada yet. So be very careful when you start looking at financial advisors. So when we discussed what I was doing, that I was just sharing terms, I was sharing definitions, I was sharing how things work out, I was sharing my personal firsthand experiences. It was decided that I didn't need professional liability insurance. Architects, engineers, home builders, they probably need those types of insurance. I myself did not. So make sure you ask, do I need professional liability insurance? And are there any other types of business liability insurance that you may need? So there's a number of different ones. I'm thinking of builders. I'm thinking of people who go onto other people's properties. I'm thinking of when clients come to your properties. There's so many things. So just ask an advisor. On a personal note, life insurance is critical. It absolutely is. I think about if my late husband had not at least had his workplace life insurance, I'm not sure how destitute my 2 little girls and I would have been because I had not finished my degree. At that point, I was a stay-at-home wife. I just thought we were just going to cook up a storm and have wonderful little play dates with my 2 kids all day. So life really shook me from that safety tree. And disability insurance. For myself, when I walked into that store that day, I honest to goodness did not believe that my life would change so tragically. It was April 22nd, 2009, and I'm still not in the clear. And at that point, I did not have private disability insurance. I did not self-insure. I had workplace insurance, and all they do, I'm so sorry to the insurance agencies. I know they're in the business of saying no, is I got pushed around to different tables and nobody wanted responsibility for me. So it's so important to self-insure. Procure your own life insurance. Don't rely on your place of employment's insurance. If it's portable, great. But if it's not, look at getting life insurance for yourself while you're young enough and healthy enough and that you don't have any pre-existing conditions, which I do now. So if I was to purchase or pursue life insurance now, it would be a challenge because I have so many pre-existing conditions. Critical illness insurance, it's the same thing. I didn't buy it when I was able to when I was young. Now going forward, I probably would not be able to obtain it. So those kind of challenges as entrepreneurs, it's important to think about those types of things for yourself, because you no longer have an employment or employer workplace type of coverage. So have the cracked windshield, because I have a little story about myself as an entrepreneur. I actually, when I first purchased my vehicle, I went to go talk to somebody about entrepreneurship. And I know a lot of people who are in rural communities, those grid roads and those rocks, my goodness. I've actually cracked my windshield twice. And silly me, I still haven't purchased a package policy, but I'm going to do it now. There's no point in me doing it because we're no longer traveling, right? We're all self-isolating for safety. So just a little tip, anything could happen. I honest to goodness feel like there's like a number 13 and black cat following me around everywhere. No, this is really important, especially as an entrepreneur. Like, do you have a will? And it's really important that you have a will. So the challenge is that you've been working really hard and you're growing your business and your personal assets, but you're not sure how to keep it in the family. So I'm asking you to consider, I'm not advising you, I'm saying, please consider making a will to ensure that your personal wishes are known and understood. And it's also really important consideration for your growing assets. I know there's people who pass away without a will, and there's such a challenge for people to prove. There's fighting, there's a lot of conflict. And it's something that I wouldn't advise anyone, because your loved ones are already grieving and they're already in a state of stress. To add anything additional, I think would be really difficult. For myself as a parent, I know that I would want my kids to be as well provided for as possible, especially when you think of additional relationships. A lot of people are not with their original partner, so there's a lot of challenges. Sometimes people have more assets than another. So additional benefits of having a will is that it gives you and your loved ones peace of mind. We spoke on that. It reduces the risk of conflict. I cannot say it removes it entirely, because there's always somebody who wants to challenge a will. I mean, all soap operas are made of part of that content. But it's really important if you're in a business partnership in terms of entrepreneurship. What happens if you don't have a will, or your business partner doesn't have one? So it's really important to make sure that each has a copy of the will that addresses any type of business entity that you share. So you've got all these important papers. You've got your insurance, you've got your will, you've got all these things happening. So what do you do with it? I myself would consider, I'm encouraging you to consider, creating a physical folder or binder of important papers. And I say physical because for myself, when I almost passed away twice now, I had some surgery related to my incident and I didn't wake up from it, so I had to stay in the hospital there. My concern was that, what if I passed away and my kids couldn't access my computer because I had it on a thumb drive and they didn't know what thumb drive it was? Or what if I stored it at a different place? Some people have, their will tucked in a kitchen cabinet, and other people have their will at their workplace, or they have an insurance policy somewhere in that pile of paper. So I always recommend people keep a physical folder or binder that's present and let others know about it. So you want to include, of course, a copy of your will, a copy of your insurance policies, and a copy of anything that will add to your family's well-being or to address your business affairs. I even have all my points cards in there, copies of my points cards. So why not? If I earn my points and if I pass away untimely, my kids should be able to inherit my points, right? So everyone who knows me knows I love purple. Purple with a splash of turquoise in honor of my late mother. So I actually have a purple folder and everybody knows it. And it used to be marked death and it seems a little morbid. So I actually call it level heaven now. So anything that happens, my kids can just pull that and it'll give them support and advice in a time of hardship and a time of grief for them. So those are the major points for Incorporation You. If you follow these 5 personal financial tips, you will be well prepared for any of life's surprises, both personally and as you move forward with your entrepreneurship journey. So it gives you that opportunity to pivot and make sure that you take care of things. I know for myself, if someone told me this 25 years ago, I would have been overjoyed to understand and have that comprehension. now I just want to shift. We've got a few minutes left, so I just want to shift it up a little bit for you guys because I see that there's some new entrepreneurs, and I want to share with you some of the things that people didn't tell me as I started my entrepreneurship journey. Some of the things I stumbled over on my own. So look at this wonderful, inspiring message here. Keep going. Everything you need will come to you at a perfect time. I can just hear the birds singing and the butterflies flying around and all those wonderful things, but sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes there's things that you just don't know. You need to know when the time comes that you need to know it. So a few lessons learned. Are you all set? Credit for two. So it's really important as an entrepreneur, and I know that there wasn't a single person in my entrepreneurship journey that talked about understanding credit and how important it is and how it plays a role as an entrepreneur potentially. So if you haven't already started, start to build up your credit, clean up your credit, or if you haven't even started, start your credit history and do it from a personal perspective because it does affect your business. So understanding credit is really important, right? We all know that. That's fair and reasonable. Managing your credit is very, very important. But having separate credit for your personal business will help you manage your money both personally and professionally. So why understand, use, or build your credit? Because at some point you or your business may need to access it. And also because if you notice the trends, we seem to be transitioning to a cashless society. So it's important for you to have that credit in place. And I'm not talking necessarily about having no debt at this point. Of course, by all means, address your debt. The debt that you have has helped you build your credit. As you reduce it and as you start erasing some of your debt, your credit will increase. But it is really important because I noticed that when I applied for a business account and a credit account, they don't actually look at my business credit. They actually have to first pursue my personal credit, right? Because my business isn't an entity that has any credit history. They actually had to look at mine first. So I always tell people, as soon as you start thinking entrepreneurship, take a look at your credit. Because at some point, maybe not right away, but in 2 years or 3 years, maybe you want to improve or grow your business, you may need credit. So start fixing and looking at it now. So let's talk about credit reporting. So the latest buzzword is credit score. Everyone's talking about their credit score. They've got so many apps. They've got so many institutions. They've got so many businesses that can sell you or show you your credit score. And they always say for free, but I just want to give you a note that that cost is somehow passed on to you. So be careful of that. And also, we don't want people tapping into your credit unnecessarily. So I always think of credit score as the adult selfie. It's just a snapshot of your credit activity in a current time. So lenders will share that information to reporting agencies. Yes, absolutely. But private businesses also procure this information because they want to tap into people, especially people who are struggling with their credit. So don't be vulnerable and don't fall for things. Don't subscribe. Again, I have to just, advise you, or encourage you, don't subscribe to any of those credit score, credit reporting companies, because you can actually access it for free. The accuracy on your credit score is dependent on a ton of different factors with a really complex algorithm that they're not prepared to share with us yet. If they don't want to share the information, we have to be cautious of that, right? That's always a risk if somebody's hiding something. And also, it fluctuates often, and it also depends on when the reporting times are and your recent activity. So just as an example, I went on my financial institution's website and I checked my credit score. And it said that I had an 859 credit score. This was 2 weeks ago, and it said it'll update it in a month. So I'm going to go back in 2 weeks to follow through with this. Now, 859 is in the top. It's 900 is the best you can get. So my credit score is pretty fantastic. And what they recommended that I actually, if I had a mortgage, it would increase my credit score. So I'm mortgage free, guys. When you understand personal finances, financial literacy, and you act on those things, you're able to really accomplish big goals. So I've been mortgage free for over 3 years. So in order to increase my credit score to 900, I would actually have to have a mortgage. How does that even make sense, right? Okay. So what you should be doing, though, is really following what your credit report is. And your credit report is an adult report card. It's a summary and report of all of your credit activity and history. And it starts as soon as you apply for credit the first time. When my son turned 18, I actually encouraged him to go down and sign his first legal contract for credit, and that was with a cell phone company. And that was the start of his credit. And I explained it to him before we got there, and I asked her to explain it from their perspective. And that's what they do, is they report any non-payments, any late payments, any of that stuff. So he actually has credit history being built from the age of 18 on. So he understands it's really important that he meets that obligation every single month, because that's on him and it's not on me. Plus, I don't have to pay a cell phone bill anymore. Yay. So lenders share the information to credit reporting agencies, and your items on your credit report will actually stay for 6 to 7 years and sometimes longer. And a lot of people think they can drop off, and they do, but the 6 to 7 years actually start from the last date of activity. So if you have a bad debt and you want it to go away and you sit quiet in the corner and hope you don't get noticed, if the creditor decides at some point to activate it or to just check in on you, that's the point of activity. So they can continue in perpetuity on any type of bad debt. And that's something that's commonly known or shared. It's more consistent. A credit report is more consistent than the credit score. So lenders have a tendency to look at the credit report, which is a longer standing history of how you manage credit, than a credit score when they're reviewing applications. So that's your credit score. Again, 859, they told me to get a mortgage if I wanted it to go higher. And then your report card for your credit. So credit reporting, again, this is so important. This is why I'm sharing a lot with you guys. I don't want to overload you. I actually have a full hour session that I talk about credit, because it's so important that our people understand, especially as entrepreneurs. It's so important that we know how that could affect us as we go down the road. It's not to discourage you by any means. It's to encourage you to say, well, maybe I need to take a look at that part of things. So it's important that you check your report. So as it says here, it's beneficial to see what creditors and lenders are saying about you, especially when you are looking to start or expand your business and you may need some access to credit. There's some other reasons. If it's been a while and you don't know what's on it, you can check if there's even a credit report started on you, if you need to repair your credit. And it's very important to monitor your risk of credit fraud. So how often do you want to get your credit report? I recommend, and I'm sure other financial people in the community recommend, ordering your credit report at least once per year. Again, I discourage you subscribing for a fee. You can actually go online and print off the form and have it provided to you for free. And it's considered what's called a soft check. So it doesn't count against you to ask for your own credit report. Try not to shop around for credit too much, because those are considered hard checks. And lenders get a little nervous if there's a lot of hard checks on your credit report, because they think either A, you're in trouble, B, you're in trouble, or C, you're in trouble and are a liability to lend to. So be careful when you start looking for hard checks. I know I have a young friend who's shopping for a vehicle, and she's very smart. I advised her, do not let them all run a credit report on you. And she said, oh, I didn't. I let one. And then I'm just telling all the other ones to just go with that. So fantastic, fantastic move. So really, honestly, think of your credit report each year like a health checkup. And we do that annually. You have an annual dental, annual eye exam, annual physical exam. Make sure you do financial health checkups too. So either do it every month, every year on your birthday month. Do it every November, which is what I do, because November is National Financial Literacy Month. So I always order my report in November. It's a trigger for me. Or pick any other date that's easy for you to remember, someone's birthday, an anniversary, something like that, so you know that you're checking it at least once a year to know what's going on.
Kate, do you just call your bank
What do you mean?
to get your credit report?
I just put up a link there. So where to order is Equifax Canada. They have 2 websites. Again, I discourage people from having to subscribe. I know businesses need to make money. We're entrepreneurs. We need that as well. But I mean, if you can get it for free, and that's your legal right to obtain your credit report for free, then get it for free. right? Just a little side tip. Sometimes I visited my bank and they will kind of pop it open and turn the screen sideways. I'm not sure if that's common practice. I don't think that it is. So, but doesn't hurt to ask, right?
I think it's now. This may have been before your time, Kyla and Shane, but there was a period of time where companies were actually mailing you out a credit card that you had not applied for, and those the minute and I had that happen to me, but because I just threw it away, cut it up and threw it away, and never said anything to that company except I'm never going to do business with them, it ended up on my credit report.
It did, and it probably would stay there. And I'll tell you why. It's because you didn't actively close it.
Yeah, that's what I had to do.
Some people will just get a card or get something and cut it up and think that's the end of it. I just won't ever use it. The problem is it's already triggered in the credit reporting system, so you have to actually close it. Some people say as soon as you start closing accounts, it hits your credit score negatively, but it's not going to be too bad in your credit report, because you can actually have it when you receive your credit report. They always give you a sheet to get feedback if something's incorrect, whether it's your employment date, credit balance. If it's been over 6 to 7 years with zero activity, you can give feedback to them and give them that form and say, you need to update my credit report. So it's important to follow with that as well. I know and I always advise people to order from both places, because TransUnion and Equifax sometimes don't report the same thing. So there was some errors in my employment period, which is important because they want to know if you're stable enough to lend to. So correct anything that's incorrect on that. But most definitely, that's why, like, we do still have to close our credit cards down. And when I close something down, if I had to, like, I know I was streamlining my credit probably about, I don't know, 8-10 years ago. I made sure that they noted that closed upon request. So they know that it was myself and not because there was anything bad in my history or there was any challenge, because they always report the levels of credit, right? So the different R1 to R9. So it's important that we make sure that they know it's our report, so we have that authority to act on it. Sometimes it takes a bump or two to say, hey, how's it going? Did you finish it? But it's important. It's your credit history. And as entrepreneurs, we may need that at some point. So we talked about credit for two, banking for two. It's so important to have separate accounts. So you need to have your own personal accounts if you're having e-savings accounts and other things, but you need a business account. So it's important because it allows you to manage two distinct money pools. I think a lot of times entrepreneurs run into trouble because they manage their personal or their business with their personal. They mix it together. And then we've even seen it on some of those financial wellness shows where, the store owner is walking in and taking cash out of the cashier at the cash register and carrying on. And so there's just a jumble of a mess happening there. And that's a real challenge, because if you do have a personal and a business bank account, having a business bank account also helps to build credit history for your business. Other reasons, it helps to keep things separate and clear for personal and business needs. It helps with your tax preparation. It helps with granting opportunities, because sometimes they'll need to see statements of your financial, business, personal, and there are other reporting requirements. I know for myself, because I have certain other obligations, I need to make sure that I'm upfront and honest and it's clear and transparent. And also for when life gets really hectic, because it does happen. So if you have two very distinct things, then right? And that will keep you happy. So another thing, and this, I know that I intended originally to talk a lot about finances, but I have an understanding that you guys will be doing some very intense financial educational business, like book educational, right, in February, I believe. So I'm just going to make some notes here. If you're going to be a business owner, even if you're not going to be the one doing your books, even if it seems a bit of a challenge, it's so important to know your dough. You need to know that, right? It's only you. And if you decide to go into business competitions or anything like that, you remember Dragons, like Dragon's Den and the other show, right? They get kicked out of there when they don't know their numbers. So it's really important to understand your own business, and understanding your books is important. That's part of it. Your pricing strategy. And I know for product, you have to make sure you know how much am I costing to create my product, and how much revenue am I building from each product. So if you're selling $8 product and it costs you $7.95, and people sometimes do that, they think, oh, this is a fair number. You need to know your pricing strategy. You need to learn your break-even point. And your break-even point is basically when you go from expense to revenue. So everybody has their own different break-even point, but there's an actual calculation. And again, I didn't want to get too far into this because I know we don't have much time. You need to know which product is your money makers. In personal finance, we always say it's important to have more than one revenue stream. Sometimes that's the truth with business as well. You need to have more than one revenue stream. And especially during COVID times, to learn to pivot was important and vital for most businesses. So you have money makers, you know which product makes the most money for you, and you also have lost products that aren't making that much money for you. So that's important to consider as well. We're almost going over, I'm sorry. And you got to decide what you want to do with your profit. Are you going to put it towards increasing your personal income, or are you going to reinvest it into your business to grow it? You're going to have to consider selecting the right software for right now. Sometimes people will go out on a limb and spend a lot of money for software that may not necessarily serve their needs right now. And you're going to have to decide on your team members. And by team members, I mean people who can help you with this. So if it's going to be yourself to start, it's your tax preparer, a bookkeeper, an accountant, whomever is going to be on your team that can provide resources. Now, just for myself, to be very clear, I only have an Excel spreadsheet that I utilize. And I was fortunate enough to get it from Indigenous Business Development Services. So there's a website there, www.ibdssk.com, or you can get a hold of anybody that actually coordinated this presentation, and they have that information. I love it. It's simple. It's not overly complex. And as my business grows, I may have to pivot or transition into something new, but don't get in over your head if you don't have to just yet. And just a couple of feel-good things. Not feel discouraged. I always tell people this, all that glitters is not gold, especially on social media. Very few people will share their struggles, their challenges, or their failures. And it's unfortunate because it really is in the struggles where we learn and we get stronger. It's important, if you're struggling, don't feel discouraged, right? Everybody thinks success is like that, and we all know that it's not. There's a challenge to it. There's a path. Sometimes there's a little bit of curve thrown at you. Just swing away. And when you're feeling discouraged, make some connections. The support system is so important. Start working on a mentorship. Make some good for you connections. And it's got to be good for you both. Connect with others in your field, but I want you to do this carefully because they are considered your competition, right? We don't want to be wary of any trade secrets or infringement or anything like that. But if you're starting a food industry business, say, hey, do you have anything you'd like to share? Join some social media pages that cater to entrepreneurs. Join associations and groups for entrepreneurs. I'm a member of a couple of different organizations, and I'm on social media pages, which is how I found out about Indigenous Business Services Canada. Sign up for training and learning opportunities like this. Keep going. And the reason why it's so important is because sometimes you're going to feel discouraged and alone in your journey. You're sitting alone, you're struggling, and sometimes it's good to connect with people because it just builds your spirit back up. One of the other tips I want to encourage you is that before or during early launch, connect with some business owners and ask them if there's anything they would do differently, or if they do more of this or less of that. Pre-COVID, I actually took out several business owners and I just bought them lunch or bought them coffee, and I just picked their brain, and it was fantastic, meaningful, real, firsthand experience shared with me for the price of, Sunday special. So it was really fantastic. And be sure to say thank you for the advice and information they share with you. Oh, here's a whole list of resources. I'm so sorry. If you want, we can certainly make it so that Jessica, it's going to be recorded, so maybe we can have it there. But there's a number of different entities that can help you for resources, whether it's professional, personal, financial. There's a number of different places that you can access. Your local Chamber of Commerce is another good one. Indigenous Business Development Services. Community Futures Development, which is, coordinated this webinar. Entrepreneurs with Disabilities Program. That was something I kind of stumbled about. They do have a small grant opportunities there, and they're actually called the North or South Saskatchewan Independent Living Centers. So I was fortunate to connect with them. So they did give me a bit of grant money to help with some of the expenses, but also there was a lot of free resources in terms of training and connecting with people and having people who had similar challenges, not identical, but at least they could understand there were some things that, we needed a little bit more assistance or help with or encouragement. Business Development Canada just posted that they actually have some low-cost loans available. Clarence Campo Development Fund. And also for Indigenous people, there's your First Nation Economic Development Branch. So some First Nations may have an economic development branch that you can access or connect with, and same with tribal councils. There's no guarantee in that. We don't know how things work in other nations, but I know that my First Nation has a small business grant. And so if there's any other resources that you guys can think of, by all means, send a message, put it in the chat, speak out if you think of something else you'd like to add. This is by no means all inclusive. And just start building today. It's so important for you to start thinking of the things. Don't go back to the telly or take a nap or anything. I mean, by all means, if you need it, but start something today. Promise yourself one thing that you're going to do today to work on, whether it's getting your personal finances in business or in order, or something business related. And that's for your better tomorrow. And the reason why I'm motivated to do this is because it's my business, it's my money, it's my choices. And these are my whys. So that's my little home. I own it. Every single rock, every single grass, every single plant, everything that I had selected. And there's such a sense of freedom and independence and confidence building in doing that, because like I said, I must be some kind of an anomaly, but I'm so grateful to have gone through the struggles I've gone through, because it taught me a lot and it makes me inspired to share with others. So very quickly, if there's any questions, I'm so sorry we went over time. I just love sharing good news though and good information.
Shane, tell me, what kind of business are you thinking of starting?
I have lots of experience in operations and maintenance and asset management. So I'm looking at doing more of a service related in the field of building envelope inspections of buildings and helping smaller businesses understand the importance of operations and maintenance. There's lots of companies. When I was at Federated Co-op, there's all sorts of retailers that didn't understand maintenance of their buildings. And so that if you don't put the money away and you don't do the maintenance, you're going to end up recapitalizing those facilities quicker. So you spend a little bit of money on maintenance, that you're better off. So I also have experience in reserve fund studies and stuff for condominiums too. So I was going to look at that. So.
Okay.
There's a fantastic resource for you, Shane. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it's called the Office of Small and Medium Enterprises. I came from a federal procurement background, so there may be things that you can take a look at. I know that, and I'll say from firsthand experience, I know that we did a lot of procurement for maintenance and things like that for our various clients. So Office of Small and Medium Enterprises. Kayla, that'd be a fantastic one for you to take a look at too. If you just Google that and check it out. I can't exactly remember. It's www.gc.ca, because we always had huge, you know how it goes, right? Because then it's got to be in 2 official languages. But take a look at that. A lot of times they offer procurement and they offer small business suppliers education or knowledge on how to actually start procuring with the federal government.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you, Kate. This is so good. You know what, I've been part of a lot of different contests and grant kind of writing and things like that. And I think it's really important, like you said, to get your finances in order so that you can, when these contests show up and, grant opportunities show up, you're ready. You have what they are requesting of you. And because it can be stressful when you're on a tight timeline, maybe you just find this contest out and it's due the next day. Don't let that stand in the way, like have your finances in order and all those things that might come up on those applications ready to go, because it's really great. Maybe they're going to have $5,000 available to you if you can win, right? So I think that was such a good point.
Thank you. And I actually did. I was one of the recipients of a grant competition. It was a startup competition. So that's another resource for people when they start looking at startup funds. You know, they call it bootstrapping. So there's a lot of different opportunities out there. And I was fortunate that I placed in one of the competitions, and that helped with some of the supplies for my business. Good point, Jessica. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. I just really love your down-to-earth approach to this, and I look forward to being able to share this also on YouTube, and I'll send you the links to the previous one and this one.
Sure, thanks. I always liken myself to that auntie that rolls up at the kitchen table and says, okay, listen, we're going to talk. We got some things we need to share, right? So, you know, I always say I feel more personal because it's personal, right? And it's really important. I mean, there's a lot of wonderful suits that are very bright and brilliant, but if they've never encountered some things firsthand, it's so hard to share to the masses. It really is. But thank you so much for attending, you guys. You have my contact information if you want to talk anything personal finance, if you want copies of my budgeting sheets and handouts or things, anything to support you as you grow as an entrepreneur, by all means, reach out, connect. That's what we're all about, right? Entrepreneur community.
Thank you, Kate.
Take
care.
Well done, Kate.
Yes, that was great, Kate. Thank you.
Thank you all. Take care, everyone.
Everybody, thanks for joining. And like Jessica said, we have taped today.